All right, welcome back to the channel. My name is Coach Jordan Hargrave. So I wanted to read you a little bit of what my client put on their intake form about an experience that they had with therapy. They were talking about this in the coaching session yesterday, and so many people in the call were like, yeah, I really relate with that. And I want you to understand that I love therapists, okay? I have had nothing but great experiences personally with therapists because I've gotten to work with a lot of them. In fact, there's a therapist in my program right now, and they usually got into the mental health field because they really wanted to help people. Maybe they had their own mental health issues and they were able to achieve freedom over them, and they wanted to pay it forward, or there's all kinds of different reasons that people are drawn to that field. But I'm just saying, like, I'm not going to be one of those people that starts you know throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Okay, like, we can acknowledge that there's a gap in understanding in the mental health field when it comes to depersonalization realization. And let me know in the comments below if this has been your experience, but I just know that it is because I've been doing this for 8 years. And obviously I'm biased because the people that come to me didn't find the help that they were looking for. So there are tons of people that do find a licensed mental professional that can help them, but I obviously don't see them because they got helped, which is great. But on the intake form, whenever somebody starts to work with me, almost every time they mention having worked with a therapist. And I get that kind of question sometimes of like, well, why would people work with you whenever they can work with somebody that has their license, right? You're just a coach. And I totally understand. At the outset, if you don't know these things, I totally understand how you could come to that conclusion. Because the assumption is that if somebody has an advanced mental health degree, surely they would be able to help you with all things related to mental health. But different therapists specialize in different things. Just because a therapist may be really great at general life issues doesn't mean that they specialize in anxiety or depression. And then maybe they specialize in anxiety and depression, but they don't specialize in dissociation. And also dissociation, which DPDR are one form of dissociation, it's really a wide umbrella term that covers a wide range of experiences where your brain separates you. I don't specialize in all forms of dissociation by any means. But, it could be that they're an amazing, well-trained therapist, but they just don't simply have a lot of experience with a particular symptom set or have that specialized training. So it's just like with a doctor, a general practitioner. This is according to Dr. Mike, who's one of my favorite doctors on the planet. But apparently, I just said apparently I have to do this. So here's the apparently kid. Every time that my wife and I say apparently, we always go, apparently, 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 it was great. If you've not seen the Apparently Kid interview, you need to watch it. It's a classic. But anyway, with that being said, apparently 80% of medical issues should be able to be dealt with by a general practitioner, which is kind of interesting because I didn't really know that. Should be, but that doesn't mean that that 80% of issues are taken care of by a general practitioner. A lot of times there's referrals, but what he's saying is a lot of times there's referrals whenever there doesn't need to be a referral. But there are specialists, okay? Even if it's 80%, there still is 20% of the time where they may be the most amazing doctor, but let's say it's like a really specific heart issue. Like, there are, like, my daughter, she has a tumor, and I don't want to talk about it too much because it's just very difficult, and I try to keep my personal, life away from here, and my clients and things like that, because I don't want to stress you out. But anyway, she had a tumor, and very large tumor, and it was between her skull base and her brain, and it was mostly removed. And sadly, it has come back, but thankfully, by the way, benign, so not cancerous. And it's an extremely rare tumor. And I'm only talking about this because I think it's a good example, okay? Because we don't want to throw therapists out or psychiatrists or any licensed mental professional. But for her age and where that tumor is, it's extremely, extremely rare. I mean, like, somebody that works on those types of things may see that once in their entire career. Like, it's just extremely rare. And so they had to call in a special surgeon. And thank God for doctors. Okay. I love doctors as well. I get to work with doctors every single year in my program as well. Also, extremely passionate people. But there's literally a surgeon that specializes in skull-based tumors that's like an hour and a half away from our house. And he normally only works on adults, but he made an exception to work on my daughter because there was just nobody else. And we're actually headed for another CT scan this Friday, I think, or this Thursday, actually. So is that tomorrow? Anyway, to see if it's growing anymore. And hopefully it's not, because and if it is, then we might have to remove it again. Just thoughts and prayers, please. That was one of the most stressful things that I've ever gone through in my entire life, was whenever her face started swelling up, and our pediatrician was like, yeah, you need to go get a test. And sure enough, there was a tumor there. And just sitting in the oncology ward at the children's hospital, and there was like a dad there, his daughter had leukemia. It's just like, life can be very, very challenging. And just seeing, but I will say, just seeing how resilient that she has been through all this is just so inspiring. I mean, I would be terrified if that was me. And she was just so strong and optimistic. I've never seen anything like it. One of the most inspiring kids ever. But it was very difficult for everybody. It seemed like it was mostly difficult on everybody else except for her. But anyway, so they have this specialized surgeon, and I wouldn't want a general practitioner helping with something so sensitive. I want somebody that has a lot of experience with that particular thing, right? I want a surgeon, if possible, that works on skull-based tumors. Like, you know what I mean? And thank God that we have that. And so, and again, I'm going to read this here in a second, but I think what's happening is a therapist will get in front of a DPDR situation, and they don't have a lot of experience with this. My clients tell me all the time they have to look up depersonalization, realization in the DSM-5. They haven't worked with those cases before. And maybe instead of referring or looking for somebody that does specialize in that, they try to help with things that may be good for other general issues but aren't specific enough to deal with DPDR. DPDR are a very particular set of symptoms that come with a lot of particular challenges, okay? And especially, it's important to know that you're dealing with trauma. And most licensed mental professionals are relying on what the DSM-5 would teach about trauma, which, in my humble opinion, based upon the trauma experts that train me, trauma is not an event. It is a state of overwhelming stress in the brain, body, and nervous system. We typically think of trauma as natural disaster, loss of a loved one, car accident, going off to war, things like that. This is an antiquated 20th century understanding of trauma. A 21st century understanding of trauma would say that trauma happens at the point of overwhelm. Okay, whenever your nervous system feels too trapped, too overwhelmed to fight or flee. And it's at that point, lots of things start to happen. Okay, it's also called the freeze response. It's basically a mammalian defense mechanism that's designed to convey to a predator that you're dead, so it loses interest and walks away, because predators prioritize a prey that puts up a fight. Think about like a cat and a mouse. As long as the mouse is running around, the cat will get some entertainment value out of it. But as soon as the mouse is dead or appears to be dead, the cat may still eat the mouse, but most of the time it'll just walk off. So just in case, though, the apex predator doesn't lose interest and walk away, there's a shutdown of what Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, the neuroscientist, calls the mohawk of self-awareness, which is a series of brain structures that are responsible for feeling connected to your body, self, and environment. And it's mohawk because it kind of forms like a mohawk haircut. That's why you feel out of body. That's why you look at your hands and they don't feel like your own. You look at your surroundings, they feel like they're fake, like it's a movie. You look at people, they feel like strangers. You look in the mirror, you feel like you're looking at a stranger. You may even hear your own voice and it sounds like a stranger's voice. It's because the part of your brain that would allow you to feel connected to those things is temporary online to help dissociate or separate you, just in case you're being eaten by a lion. And you may be thinking, well, I haven't been through any traumatic event. And again, trauma is not an event, it's a state. But I'm not in any danger. Okay, I understand that. But your nervous system thinks that you're in danger. It happened one of two ways: either a complex trauma situation where there was a history of repeated stress and adversity over time and it all built up almost like filling up a cup of water, or it was a major trauma, which is where you could have had a calm history, but there was a singular situation that really overwhelmed your nervous system. Most of the clients that I'm working with, they would say like, hey, I've always been a pretty anxious person. Or if they don't say that, they'll be like, yeah, I went through this thing and 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 this thing, and it all just started to add up, right? And so anyway, with that being said, their nervous system is overwhelmed and their brain thinks that they're dying, even though they're not. And they go to the doctor, and the doctor's like, we can't find anything. Like, this is just an anxiety issue. Then they refer them to a licensed mental professional, which is great. But then the licensed mental professional, it seems like a lot of times doesn't really know how to help with this. And they're just throwing talk therapy or CBT at this. And even they're not practicing those evidence-based practices as they should be taught, because they don't include a lot of vital things that actually make those things evidence-based practices, which is a whole nother video. And then people try all these online programs, acceptance, distraction. They try supplements. They try kind of random positive activities. I'll just clean up my diet. I'll just hit the gym really hard. I'll start doing cold plunges and Wim Hof breathing. And but they're not doing things that are specific enough to make a massive case of safety to their nervous system. Because that's the root issue, is that your body is in a threat response. Your body's preparing as if there's a threat. And so we need to do things that are specific to communicating safety. Blueberry coffee, best. I put creatine in there, 5 grams. I put collagen peptides, coconut oil powder as well. Get some good fat and protein to break my fast. Kind of makes it not as tasteful, but it's still really good. But anyway, so let's go ahead and read this real quick. I've tried talk therapy, and the therapist either didn't know what DPDR was, or they said that's not what I have. And I hate to even read this because I don't want to make it seem as if this is representative of most therapists. It is absolutely not. I could tell you story after story after story. It seems to be more psychiatrists than therapists, and that's a whole nother video. Like, I don't even want to go down that road, but I've heard my clients say that psychiatrists have told them very, very stressful things. Like, yeah, I just heard, this isn't true, by the way, but I've heard there's really nothing you can do to break out of this, or you're just going to have to manage this and things like that. Way more, like 99% more than I've heard therapists say this. Again, therapists are usually wonderful people who are just trying to help. But whenever you hear about depersonalization, realization, and you don't have a history with that, sometimes the symptoms get confused with psychosis or schizophrenia and different things, or it's kind of shocking for them if they've never seen a client like that. So in their defense, there's no defense for what this person said. This therapist never should have said this, but I'm trying to do everything I can to defend therapists because I think they're wonderful people. But my therapist didn't know what DPDR was, or they said that's not what I have because only crazy people get it. Yeah, that's definitely not okay. I've never met anyone who really understood what DPDR was to be able to help me. I'm also on anxiety medication, which doesn't seem to help with DPDR at all. It's so interesting, okay? And again, if you don't know this, I understand why people would say, hey, it's, just go to a licensed mental professional, just do some talk therapy, do some medication. And by the way, would never, ever try to dissuade you from taking anxiety meds. Those things can save people's lives sometimes, okay? I want to be very clear about that. Talk to a doctor about that. Talk to a licensed mental professional. I cannot give any advice about medication. I'm just simply sharing what my clients have said. And I'm biased because my clients are coming to me because they didn't see the results that they wanted to see. So that doesn't mean that there's not many, many people that have great experiences with anxiety, antidepressant medications. There's a good book called Lost Connections by the British journalist Johann Hari. He's been on the Joe Rogan podcast a couple times. He talks about a lot of studies, double-blind studies that were very revealing about anti-anxiety, antidepressant medications. So check that out. But with that being said, yeah, that's the experience with my clients, at least, is their DPDR and anxiety are either not affected at all by these medications, or there's a paradoxical effect where they feel worse. And so, yeah. But again, doesn't mean that a lot of people aren't helped. I've also tried. Oh yeah, well, sorry. Let's talk about talk therapy. Let's talk about talk. See, no pun intended. 36-year-old dad jokes. They're not getting any more funnier, but I got to keep trying. But anyway, which by the way, I'm a girl dad. I've got 3 girls and 1 on the way. So a lot of girls at my house. A lot of estrogen. Every day somebody cries over something. Sometimes it's me. I'm like, no. But what I was going to say is, like, talk therapy is awesome. In fact, I remember whenever, sorry, I'm rubbing my nose, my allergies are really bad. Our dog normally sleeps at the end of our bed, and she decided to sleep right next to us last night. And I woke up sneezing. But I remember whenever I was a kid, and my parents went through a really bad divorce, and I was falling behind in school, D's and F's, was being very severely bullied. And I guess the teachers were concerned, and they sent a social worker, I think it was, maybe a therapist, but she just kind of talked to me. She pulled me out of class, and she just kind of started asking me questions, and I kind of told her about the divorce. And it was one of the only times in my life that somebody actually listened to me, because my brothers were so devastated by the divorce, and they were just surviving. And there were a lot of days where we'd have like 2 cans of ravioli, a lot of hot dogs, microwave hot dogs, a lot of burritos, a lot of ramen noodles. It's ramen, not ramen, by the way. No, sorry, it's ramen, not ramen. So, whoa, I'll mess that up. It's ramen noodles. I don't care what anybody else says. Had a lot of rats in our house. Sometimes the electricity would get shut off. And I want to be very clear. I honor my father and mother, and they remarried and everything turned around. But there was a pretty dark season for me and my brothers. But anyway, it was like at home, I didn't have anybody. And this isn't woe is me. I'm just telling you. Then I would go to school, didn't fit in because I didn't have, name brand clothing. I didn't have a cool haircut. I'm not saying I do now. It's actually looking kind of horrible today. But I just didn't fit in. And so to actually have somebody sit down and listen to me, it only happened one time. But it really, really changed my life. And then there was another guy that worked for like a local, I can't remember the name of it. He was part of a facility that helped social services or something, I don't even know, that helped kind of struggling kids. And he helped me get diagnosed with a math learning disability, which helped me get some funding to go to school, go to welding school eventually, and get some accommodations and things. And he really cared about me. And I'm telling you, I know this is kind of rabbit trailing, but like, never underestimate the impact of just caring about people and just taking time to invest in especially younger people, because it can really have a profound impact. Like, I remember all the teachers that bullied me, that gave me a hard time. I don't think I'll ever be the same after that, honestly. But I also remember the teachers that believed in me, even though I was a rebellious kid and it was so easy to just believe that I would never amount to anything. I remember the teachers that took time. So anyway, but like, talking in a safe environment with a safe person and just venting is very therapeutic. I love talk therapy. I think everybody could use some talk therapy. But again, just because talk therapy may be good, generally speaking, does not mean that that's enough to get somebody's nervous system out of a state of traumatic stress that is causing their brain to dissociate them with DPDR. Now, technically, if talk therapy is taught as it should be taught, it's going to include a lot of the things that I teach, which are things that evidence has shown rewires the nervous system. In fact, which I won't go too deep into this, but there was a meta-analysis that looked at all the evidence-based approaches for anxiety and trauma, things like that. So CBT, talk therapy, EMDR, DBT, these are evidence-based practices, meaning like there's proof that they work, okay? It's not anecdotal. But this meta-analysis concluded that there was less than a 1% variance in outcome based upon which method was used. What? The meta-analyses said, quote, there was no discernible difference in outcome based upon which method was used. And it's like, well, that's very different than what you probably would have thought. This sent shockwaves through the mental health system because there were all these people that believed that talk therapy was superior or EMDR was superior or this thing was superior or this evidence-based practice was superior, rather. And so the trauma experts that trained me, they basically were like, wait a second. So if it's not the particulars of that evidence-based practice that's bringing the results, but these are evidence-based practices, meaning there's proof that they work, then what is bringing the results, right? Meaning it doesn't really matter, if you move your eyes back and forth. I don't really think that does much of anything personally. I think it's more just a pattern interrupt. They'll usually have you, looking at different visuals, there's sounds, different things. It's really just Pavlovian reconditioning. But regardless, well, if all of these evidence-based practices are taught as they should, there are actually some common themes among all of them that are actually producing the results. And it's everything that I teach in my program. Self-regulation, starting to monitor and relax your body and release the tension, adrenaline, and emotion from your body. The next is co-regulation. This is a combination of positive expectancy, building hope in people, as well as a safe, healing relationship, okay, therapeutic relationship. Because you can have you ever gone to a therapist and like they didn't understand your symptoms, or maybe they just made you uncomfortable, which hopefully this hasn't happened too often, but I know it does sometimes. They could have been doing the right thing as far as the method, but if you don't feel comfortable with the mentor, it violates a sense of safety and it makes it very difficult for your nervous system to downregulate. So self-regulation, co-regulation, exposure, so facing triggers is really, really important. And then also something called cognitive restructuring, which is where you get a basic understanding of how your nervous system works, and then you renew your mind to that, to detach fear and shame from symptoms. If these evidence-based practices are taught as they should include these components, but so often they're not. And so that's one reason why people are not seeing results. It's not even that they're not receiving an effective evidence-based practice, it's that it's not being taught as it should, okay? So I've also tried neurotherapy recently, which also doesn't seem to be working, as well as other therapies. I try to use distraction and to keep myself busy, which helps for a short time, but the DPDR always comes back. Yeah, I mean, I talk about this constantly. Distraction is somatic dissociation. Somatic meaning body, dissociation meaning to separate. And there are some people that see results from that and they think that they're recovered, but your body is a war zone. It's going into a state of survival. And if you live in your head all day, you may temporarily basically get cut off from all the chaos within. You're literally separating from the chaos within, but you're not dealing with the chaos. And it's exhausting to distract your mind 24/7. A lot of people, it doesn't even work. I know for me, it didn't work at all whenever I tried it. I was like, don't talk to me. I got to distract my mind. I got to play video games. I got to do this. I got to do that. It was just exhausting. And it's like, if you have to do that, that should tell you that you're not dealing with the root issue. Because once you make your body your safe place, you don't have to distract all the time. You can just be in the present moment, right? But yeah, people see results and they post about it online and other people think, okay, well, this person recovered. I should be able to recover too. And then they practice it and it may work for them temporarily, but I'm telling you, you're going to have to come face to face with your body eventually. You might as well do it now, okay? So that's what I do with people is I help them face their body, befriend the body, and then that indirectly deals with all the appropriate symptoms of fight, flight, freeze response, time distortions, DPDR, anxiety, panic, all these different things, okay? So if you want to learn the 5 shifts that you need to make to heal your nervous system, click the first pinned comment, as well as there's a link in the description. There's also a link to apply to work with me and my team, either after you watch the 5 shifts masterclass, or there's a direct link to, if you've already watched the masterclass, make sure to watch that masterclass. It's going to equip you with the knowledge that you need, whether you work with me or whoever. Really, really important. But also, if you do apply to work with us, we do ask that you've seen that masterclass first, because we want to update you or educate you on the basic knowledge that you need to know, so that my team doesn't have to spend a lot of time doing that on the call. It kind of just shows you the basics of how to heal the nervous system. So smash the like button if you made it, and also comment, let me know if you made it to the end. I didn't mean for this video to be 25 minutes, but let me know, comment and say I made it to the end, and that's awesome. And also, please click like, help me get this out into the algorithm. I'm a smaller channel and I really need the help. It's getting harder and harder to get videos out, and I've found that people are finding me faster. Not that it's about me, not that I'm special or anything like that. I'm just an average person doing his best to try to talk about these symptoms to the best of my ability. I have so much to learn. But I will say it's awesome, because one of the reasons I started doing a lot more content several months ago is because people would have to burn through so many different people that made these big, bold claims, but weren't able to back that up. And then they found me, and I'm like, if they would have found me faster, because I don't like doing content. It's just not my thing, honestly. But I do it because I care about people, and I want to get in front of people faster so they don't have to burn through so many different methods and different things. And so if you click like, it really helps get this out there, okay? Awesome. That is it. I hope you have an amazing day. You got this. There's nothing but hope for you. Keep pressing on, and I hope that this video has helped you. Take care.